Welcome to the Smart Influencer Podcast. I'm Corinne,
And I'm Christina.
and together we help digital entrepreneurs streamline their businesses, maximize revenue, and finally feel in control of their time.
Every week, we share tried and true strategies, proven systems, and expert interviews to help you grow your influence and income without the burnout. So, if you're ready to get smarter about how you run your business, you are in the right place.
Before we dive in, if you love what you hear, be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you find today's conversation helpful, please share it with a friend who could use it too.
So, today we are chatting with the world famous Casey Markee from MediaWise, all about why bloggers need to embrace AI and not block it. Welcome to the show, Casey. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, ladies. Thanks so much for having me, and happy holidays to everyone listening on the call. I am Casey Markee. I'm a 25-year plus SEO professional who works exclusively with food, lifestyle, and travel bloggers. I offer SEO audits to bloggers that seek to cut through noise, focus on what actually matters, and future-proof sites for where SEO and AI are headed next, which is going to be a big topic today. I'm currently booking audits for February 2026, and I'm excited to talk to Corinne and Christina and all of you to kind of separate some of the clarity from the confusion that's happening out there for bloggers big and small. So thanks for having me again today, ladies.
Yes, thanks so much for joining us. We've been super excited for this conversation.
Yeah, because there's so much chatter out there and it's
Mhm.
hard to discern between what's legitimate and what's just, nonsense. Like stuff's
Right.
being made up left and right. So we're eager to be diving in to get to the bottom of it all with you. So where would you
Absolutely.
like to start?
Well, let's talk about basically the state of blogging in 2025. We've been
Great.
hearing a lot of, oh my gosh, blogs are dead.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't consider this as a career anymore, but blogging is not dead, but I would say that the easy mode era is over. I mean, the
Right.
days of the average blogger publishing content and just sitting back on their haunches waiting for the traffic to come in is over. And the thing is that traffic still exists. It's just unevenly distributed now because of the
Mm-hmm.
launch of things like the answer layer. And when we talk about the answer layer, we're talking about how the fact that Google is moving to what's called a walled garden. Their goal is to keep as much traffic for themselves as possible. And that's what we have with Gemini. That's what we have with the AI overviews. That's what we have the increased carousels and instant answers that you're seeing at the top of search results. They want to keep as much of that traffic as we can. So we're seeing traffic drops across the wide spectrum for a lot of bloggers. A lot of bloggers tell me that their biggest queries are down, not necessarily because of anything negative they did, but because the SERP changed. The SERP being the search engine ranking positions. And we see that a lot in audits. A blogger will come to me and they're like, Casey, I do not understand what's going on. I just thought I had just had Thanksgiving and my traffic was down 14% and it didn't look like I had any ranking drops. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't have any ranking drops. But if you look down here, you'll see that green bean casserole now has an AI overview,
Right.
which includes multiple other options. And so that's going to peel off a significant amount of clicks that you used to get previously. In many
Yeah.
cases, it could be anywhere from 20 to 30% of clicks. The thing is that there's still plenty of traffic out there. You just have to understand how to optimize accordingly. I think the thing to understand is that blogging is still relevant, and the bloggers who are, again, putting in the effort, the bloggers who are really concise with their information, who are really clear, who are really structured, who are understanding and operating their blogs as businesses as opposed to hobbies, are still doing incredibly well. And there's plenty of traffic out there to be had.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, we see a lot, especially in the food blogging world. I'm not sure how prominent it is in your industry, Corinne, but the whole like sheep mentality and just trying to reverse engineer what somebody else is doing without understanding truly why they're doing it.
Yeah, and interject, there's a lot of what we call fear-based advice there.
Hmm.
So these bloggers, they'll get impacted, say, by the core update, which just got pushed through in December, and they're like wondering, well, gosh, I immediately have to go in and rewrite all my content, and I need to do this and this. That is absolutely the worst thing that they can do. The thing to understand about the core updates is Google is really clear. The good thing about the core updates, if there is a positive, is that Google is very clear about that. They're looking to surface high quality, clear content that provides a need. And I always have an audit with a blogger, and the blogger says, well, I've been doing best practices and yet I'm still down. And I'm like, could you explain to me what those best practices are? and they're not remotely best practices. They had copied, like you said, a larger blogger, saw something they were doing, decided to do it themselves, thought that a recipe post should have 5 photos of the finished dish, thought that longer is better and that word count is supposedly going to help them rank higher. All of those are not true. The goal again is Google it only has so much real estate and resources they can devote for that first and second page. So you have to really be clear with how you are going to stand out. What is it about your content that's better than the rest of the content? Google provides a long list of questions. If you go and type in core updates, Google advice, there's a whole page where they list assessment questions. Is my content helpful? Is my content as clear as it can be? Is it covered with ads and pop-ups and interstitial? For example, I just had an audit yesterday where we couldn't figure out why we kept having these random pop-ups happen across a Journey site with Mediavine, and come to find out that they had auto enrolled the publisher. And by the way, for anyone who's on Journey, this has happened to you already. They auto enrolled them into a new ad unit. It's an interstitial that is literally popping up across the site. Pop-ups destroy your ability to build traffic. That is not conjecture, it is fact. Google hates pop-ups. Whenever a pop-up happens, Google's crawling a page, they'll hit a pop-up and boom, they'll leave the page and come back. I think you ladies have toddlers. Maybe they're a little older. I used to have toddlers. My kids are now almost out of the house, thank God. But we used to routinely walk down the hallway, and then all of a sudden I would have one of the kids just come out from an adjoining room and slam me into the wall. Fantastic. Good times.
Yeah.
Great analogy, though.
That is literally what pop-ups do. That is literally what pop-ups do to users and Google. So I get it. You guys want to use pop-ups, but when you have things like Print Pass or gated print, which are ways for you to lock your recipe card and collect emails that way, which is very honestly non-intrusive, highly successful, the days of pop-ups are over. Your goal is to remove as many barriers as you can from your site and your recipes to make it as easy for Google to fully crawl and algorithmically score your content. So a blogger comes to me and they have pop-ups, I'm going to immediately tell them, remove your pop-ups. What do you want to do? Do you want to build traffic, or do you want to pad your email list? If you want to pad your email list, there are other ways that we can do it that are not intrusive.
So I'm going to walk you back just a second, because you said a couple of things when you're talking about the state of blogging that I want to dive a little bit deeper on. You talked about how like the traffic is unevenly distributed now. And then you also talked about the walled garden. So even if you do all the things, get rid of your pop-ups, do all the stuff that's going to, like write like a person should write, don't write just for length, all of the things. And so you end up in that coveted first position or zero position, but now that's the AI overview because they don't want to send people off there because you've answered it. Why am I working that hard, one, to get that spot that's not going to send me that much traffic? Like, why work so hard being the number one spot if it's not going to show me? And like, I was doing the menu, for example, for this week. I've got my kids coming in, so they want to eat every day. So I had to come up with my menu for the next 2 weeks. And as I was searching for recipes for like just our ordinary family meals, these same sites kept showing up. And I think that's the uneven distribution, right? Like the sites that have really proven themselves are dominating in the top of search results. So is it even worth it if you're a mid-sized blogger now to try and compete there? And what's the upside? Because unless you carve your way in to get that number one spot, to get the less traffic that's available now there, like, please tell me, because I know you're here for a reason, and I'm sure there's a silver lining on this cloud, but I'm not hearing it yet.
Well, the vast majority of bloggers are in that middle space. They're between 17 and 75,000 a month in traffic. Those bloggers are growing. Those bloggers are having increased RPMs. Those bloggers are getting traffic, but they're getting traffic because they're concentrated on the long tail, because that doesn't necessarily have an AI overview. The bigger sites are always going to eat. The bigger sites are always going to get the majority of traffic. That's just how it is. But what I see is that a blogger will come to me like, Casey, I'm stuck at 40,000 sessions a month. How do I get to 80,000? Their site is a mess. They have topical dilution issues. They have semantic confusion. They have incorrect schema issues. They have 3 recipes that are literally the same thing. They don't know how to do internal linking. They're running too many ads. That's why audits are so incredibly important. It doesn't matter if you are a first blogger or a middle experienced blogger, or even someone that's doing 5 million sessions a month. I have audited them all. I'm at
Mhm.
137 audits this year. I'm scheduled probably to do 145, 150 next year. Audits are literally your secret sauce. They allow you
Mhm.
a competitive advantage to plan 12 and 18 months ahead.
Yeah.
I had a blog, I had an audit on Monday, my last of the year. They had 1,100 internal 404s.
Oh,
They
wow.
had no idea that they had those. They had a site-wide broken link to social media profiles. They had switched from ConvertKit to MailerLite, so they broke all their email forms. Didn't know that. They had recipes that they had, quote, unpublished and made private because they were told that's what we do with content when we want to get it out of the index. By the way, folks, it's not. You use this thing called no index so that you don't, what she did, create hundreds and hundreds of internal 404s. But
Wow.
when you do that, you destroy the ability to algorithmically crawl and understand your content. So of course you're going to have ranking drops. Of course you're going to have traffic drops. Of course you're not going to do as well as another blogger. And trust me, I've had bloggers come in who were totally convinced that their sites were 100% correct, and they literally left with a 37-page report that they're still working on a year later because they just don't know what they don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what's important is our goal is to make your site so semantically relevant and valuable that you worrying about AI overviews is the least of your problem.
Hmm.
Okay. You're going to lose traffic that way. But what you can do is create your own walled garden on your blog. I mean, blogs eventually are going to become not necessarily the final destination, but a stopover.
Hmm.
But right now, you need to make them as sticky and as algorithmically attractive as possible. And most sites don't. They spend money on a theme. They come to me after spending $15,000 on a theme. The theme lacks basic features like fully fleshed out breadcrumbs, or they're still using a recipe filter when they should be using a recipe index, or they don't understand that, when you start a post at the top with an ad or an auto playing video player from Raptive or Mediavine, you're immediately putting yourself behind the eight ball with regards to building traffic because no one wants to see that as the first experience when they
Hmm.
come to a page. But the issue is that there is plenty of traffic to have. The issue isn't the fact that you're getting less traffic. The issue is that you've got so many issues now that unless you fix them, you're always going to be competitively behind the eight ball
Right.
Yeah.
with your ability to build traffic. And that is the God's honest truth. You please seek out help. I do not clean my pool. I do not do my own gardening. Okay. Because that is not my zone of genius.
Right.
I do not do podcasts much. I do not have my own podcast because, frankly, it's a lot of work, as I know you ladies will attest to.
Yeah.
So you have to learn what you are comfortable doing. What is your zone of genius? And then you need to seek out help with everything
Yep.
else,
Right.
whether that's email, whether that's SEO, whether that's internal linking. That's what audits cover, all of that
Hmm.
and more, so that you can understand with a clear roadmap what you can and cannot do yourself and advance in the right direction.
I will personally attest that after my first, I've had several audits with you, but after my first one, I tell everybody this, I made the money back within 2 months
Yeah,
in
and
earnings,
again,
increased
that's
earnings.
and that's great.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's not. I mean, I have bloggers,
But there was,
and I take this, and that's the thing. I take this incredibly seriously because it can be a lot of money. My audit started $2,000, and so for a
hmm
blogger who's only doing $600 or $700 a month, that is a big
yeah.
investment.
Right.
And I just tell them, look, is this a hobby or is this a business for you?
Yeah. You
Because if
have
it's
to
a
spend
business,
money to make money in a business.
this is a business investment. It has
Yeah.
never been more competitive to be a
Yeah.
blogger. Everyone and their mother decided to start a blog during COVID.
Hmm.
There has never been any more domain registrations in that first year of COVID.
Hmm.
Crazy. That
hmm
Wow.
number has steadily gone down, but the number of sites that are still here have continued to go up.
Yeah.
So you have more competition, you have less real estate,
Hmm.
you have, as you said, a lot of competing advice, whether it's from an ad company or myself or someone else. You just have to kind of put your nose to the grindstone and ask yourself, does this make sense?
hmm
Like, hey, is doing this going to help me improve the stickiness of my pages? Is this going to help me make appear more highest meets needs to Google?
hmm
How do I optimize for all these changes with LLMs? All of that. That's all covered in a regular audit these days.
hmm
Well, and the other thing, we just did an interview about masterminds and about how
Mhm.
you really have to like ask around to make sure that it's the right fit for
Right.
you.
That is
And
a very good question, and hopefully I'm not going to cut you off too soon. But Never take a mastermind from someone who's got less traffic than you.
Right.
Right? You know how many times I've seen that? Oh, I'm joined so and so masterminds, and I'm like, wait, you joined this person's mastermind. They haven't even qualified for an ad company. You have 3 times their traffic, 3 times their sponsorships and brand deals. What are you getting out of this mastermind relationship?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
what that made me think of with you, Casey, is that because I also did an audit with you, and one of the things that I always appreciated, and next time I do an audit, I will come back to because in your case, like I felt like you were so invested in how my blog was going to perform. Like before we had our call, like you give it homework before you
Mhm.
gave us homework for this podcast interview. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but like you gave me homework beforehand before we ever talked, like get this done so that we're at a good starting point. After or during the call, you're like afterwards, like as you start to work through this list, send me the samples of what you've updated so that I can give you feedback. Like I felt very supported in that. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to have a very expensive 2 hour conversation and then I'm going to wash my hands with you.
Well,
Um, so,
first
and
of all,
I,
your check is in the mail, so I do appreciate that. So that's very kind of you. I take this very seriously. I
Yeah.
the bloggers who do the best are the ones who stay in touch.
Hmm.
It is never a bother to answer someone's questions. I'd rather them come to me and say, "Hey, I have been doing this since 1998. I have been doing this for 25 plus years. I have seen it all from before Google existed to, I remember the good old days when I literally could put up a page and we would sell pharmaceuticals. That
yeah,
was 2002. And I would go to bed and I'd wake up and the client would have $40,000 in pharmaceutical sales the next day. The things have changed. That was before things like the knowledge graph. That was before things like
Hmm.
schema.
right.
It was amazing what recipes looked like online in 2002. It was not like this.
Yeah,
No, I think I
So
still have some of those posts on my site that I got to
yeah,
clean up.
yeah, there is very few people operating in the food and lifestyle niche specifically that have that sort of pedigree. I have seen it all, and of course, it's also made me very jaded. So when someone comes up and says, "Well, hey, I'm finding that this works," we'll test it. Usually, find out that it's not working, and we
Hmm.
have to come out aggressively because, as you said, there is a lot of noise
right.
in this niche. I mean, one of the biggest things we've been seeing is a lot of people are coming out with no expertise, no experience, and they're selling these AIO or AEO audits. You've probably seen those.
Hmm.
Folks, if you don't remember anything else today, remember this. Those are a waste of your time. There is no way you cannot build the right citation. You cannot build the right visibility layer. Everything that you would be using to be visible for LLMs has already been built into SEO for years. Basically, what is old is new again. Okay, so I kind of laugh because someone sent me a quote yesterday. Hey Casey, I was contacted for this person here who was on a podcast selling a $2,000. They call it AIO, so basically a genic
Hmm.
visibility or IO. It could be AIO, it could be AEO, it could be GEO, EIEIO. Who knows, right? There's tons of new acronyms, but they're all promising something that is
Right.
not really true.
Right.
If you want to be visible for what we call the answer layer, if you want to be visible in LLMs, if you want to optimize for what's called persistent memory in ChatGPT and other LLMs, then you have to do things that you would do if you were on social media. You have to
Hmm.
use AI buttons. You have to use simple AI summaries to make it easier for Google and users and LLMs to understand the main points of your content. You have to
Right.
use structured data. You have to make sure that you're writing in a clear and visible way that answers questions very easily, that you're not writing to a word count, that you're not putting these huge blocks of text together that conflate multiple keywords and principles, because that's hard for LLMs to
Hmm.
understand.
Hmm.
Right.
Ladies, I know that we talked about this a couple years ago. I mean, you've heard that my saying was always optimized for toddlers and drunk adults.
Right.
I even passed out shirts at a tastemaker conference a couple years ago on that. Well, now it's toddlers, drunk adults, and LLMs
Mm.
Yeah.
because it is the same
Yep.
level of reasoning. These LLMs have passed the Turing test, but it's still the average IQ of a 5-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're not doing anything dramatic. So please, if someone's offering you some kind of an AIO or AEO optimization package, don't walk, run. You do not
Right.
need that. If
Right.
they're a competent SEO, they're already offering AI visibility techniques just like I am as part of their regular audit package.
Right.
showing you what you need to do on your site, showing you, making sure that you're availing yourself of all the schema that's being picked up, showing you how to make it more clear for your content to be surfaced in the answer layer. But you certainly shouldn't be paying someone who's just all of a sudden offering those out of the goodness
Yeah.
of their heart, or they just decided, hey, I'm with an AI company, so I've decided that I'm going to start offering this as
Hmm.
a side quest.
Well,
Waste
and
of your
especially
time.
when there are like several people, yourself included, have put the information out there for free.
For
So
free, for
Yeah.
yeah,
free. I have written 3 articles now for Search Engine Land that
Wow.
I've been told have been incredibly popular. So I really appreciate that. And they've all covered everything about, how LLMs work, how to optimize for AI visibility based upon how you put your content together. All of that's covered. The new buttons have become very popular. You've seen those pop up all over the place. The AI buttons allow you to influence what's called persistent memory. I personally am a big fan of this. If you don't do anything else in 2026, do this. Install buttons on your site. So if someone comes to your site, you give them the ability to summarize and save you as a high quality source in their own version of LLMs.
Hmm.
That's called persistent memory. A lot of people don't understand how it works. There's plenty of information out there. I've covered it multiple times, but everyone has their own version of ChatGPT. Now, I think there's something like 800 million people a week now using ChatGPT.
Right.
So imagine if you could go in and influence how they save you in only half of 1% of those users. I mean, that could really help you with regards to, helping
right.
influence that answer layer. It's not
Hmm.
a ranking factor. Your goal is to drive mentions. I've mentioned this before. The citation is basically the new link. You
Right.
want to
Yeah.
be cited as much as you can in LLMs. If you're Alana Davis, who owns Casino by Alana, and she's based in Chicago, we want to make sure that anyone's looking for Italian recipes in that area or wherever, they want to remember her and how she's associated with her brand.
Hmm.
And so everything we do is driving mentions and citations to her About Me page, or putting buttons on her recipe so that users can summarize or look at it, or use ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever to find variations and
Right.
and ways to bookmark her. And at the same time, we're updating their personal versions of memory to remember
Sure.
Elena as
Yeah.
someone who has clear expertise in Italian American cuisine.
Hmm.
Well,
It's
it's
it's a
interesting because in
given.
the homework you gave us, like I
Mhm.
like was looking to see because I'm all about okay, well, how do we rank? Like what's he going to tell us? And when I was reading through some of the tips that you've recommended it does sound a lot like SEO. Like
It
it
is
just
Right.
just
sound
it is it
right, like
is literally just
structure.
SEO.
So
Yeah,
If
structure, EEAT,
Yeah,
like a lot
that's
of it
it.
was the same.
That's why I always just get a laugh about, oh my gosh, are you going to give me an AEO audit? Or are you going to talk about artificial intelligence, or any of this, how we can optimize for these LLMs? Again, if you write good content that's easy for Google and users to pull out the information, you are writing for LLMs. You're
Mhm.
writing to be discovered. Your goal needs to have clean, discoverable, citable content. That is
Mhm.
literally the secret sauce. You don't have to go in and put hidden code.
Mhm.
There are things like same as schema. There are things like knows about schema. There are things like web page schema. That's all covered in a regular audit these days. If not, then you need a new SEO.
Mhm.
But those are things that you definitely would not want to pay a third party to screw around with you for you.
I did want to
Well,
ask about a couple of the things that were there that
Mhm.
were to me different than what like we'd covered in our audit. So like definitely seemed to be more like the state of the industry right now, like what
Right.
works now. And one of them is the summaries at the top.
Hmm.
Like I don't remember that from the past, maybe that was, but like having that really strong summary at the top, like you talked about the importance of that. And then the other one is really leaning in on like the uniqueness, right? Like talking about like saying I made this mistake and that's why I need to
Absolutely.
fix it.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if an LLM comes and visits your site, and they're visiting 5 other sites, and they see that 4 of the sites are saying the same thing, guess who they're not going to choose?
mhm.
Those 4 sites. They're looking for differentiation as much as possible. Now, let's two issues there. So let's talk about the summaries.
Mhm.
So I have always pushed a what you need to know summary at the top, or why this recipe works is a better
Right.
way to put it. It's an H2. We put that towards the top so that we can provide a differentiation aspect between your lime green pudding, your lime green jello, as opposed to another lime green jello. Maybe you're using it or a different way. Well, the summary is basically an evolution of that. Yeah, you'll find on the examples I gave you, there might be an AI summary at the top, a too long don't read summary
Hmm.
that has information from the recipe card, as well as information on like a summary of here's why this is where this recipe works best. And then below that, you'll still see why this recipe works, or maybe you'll even see a customer quote.
Right.
And our goal, of course, is to continue changing this template up so that my clients are differentiating themselves from the tens of thousands of other people out there.
Right.
Okay. Now I have a wide reach. So of course that means that other people will read an article and pick it up and implement that as well. But differentiation is the key to success when you're
Hmm.
trying to be cited by LLMs. We have to stand out, and the way to stand out is to make it easier to parse the most important information at the top of the post, preferably within the first 200 to 300 words. And then we get, they can commit further down into the recipe for, you know, your labeled photo of the ingredients, your individual step-by-steps. Maybe you include an FAQ so
Hmm.
that we can optimize for the people also ask accordion. Maybe you have other expert tips. You mentioned the mistakes as an example. LLMs love that. If there's any way that you can provide something that sets your experience apart, that helps you both in notability and also again in differentiation. So if you've made a recipe 100 times and you're like, oh, guys, I made this 100 times, but let me tell you about the 2 times I really screwed up. So you don't do this.
Right.
And you might make a note of that. I would mention that in the post, and I would again maybe mention that in my recipe card notes.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've said this many times. Google treats the recipe post and the recipe card as separate entities.
Right.
You're optimizing the recipe post for the regular organic rankings, the SERPs. You're
Hmm.
optimizing the recipe card for the carousels. Now we are entering a time when we will not have structured data. I would suspect that structured data will probably cease to exist within the next 2 to 3 years.
Hmm.
We are literally going in a nadar where AI systems just don't need any of that extra information to understand what a post is about.
Right.
And I suspect that things like schema.org and other organizations, they might cease to exist very quickly, probably before our next Winter
Oh,
Olympics. Okay. Not
Wow.
this one, but the one after that.
Yeah.
And that means that you have to continue to be as clear as you can with how you put your recipes together. But at least right now, I want to make sure that the most important information in the post makes it under notes in the recipe card, because there is a percentage of your users that are only going to print out the recipe card.
right.
And it's
Right.
imperative that we give them that information in the recipe card. A lot of bloggers use the recipe card for things that is what I would consider supplemental or secondary information that's not helpful. Things like substitutions or variations or does this freeze. That is not necessary for the user to make the recipe. You should
Hmm.
be thinking utility. What is the most important information that I could put in the card so that I know that if the user makes this recipe with just my recipe card, they've made it perfectly the first time. Substitutions, variations, freezing, that doesn't fulfill that intent.
That
Now,
makes
it's
sense.
not going to kill you to include that, but that usually to me is a sign that maybe you didn't think deeply enough about what other information you could put to
Right.
benefit that user in that recipe card.
Right. That makes sense.
And again, because some people are just going to print out the recipe card and they might never come back. So let's make sure that we give them the information they need to ensure a positive result. So hopefully they'll
Hmm.
come back and share that positive result by means of a comment and a rating.
Yeah. So a couple things that I'm hearing though in all of this, like a couple main themes is number one, SEO is not dead.
Oh,
And
not at all.
we have heard that I can't even tell you how many times that SEO is dead. Everything has changed. It's no longer, it's changed. Yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
It's evolved just like
Right.
everything else.
But our whole industry has done nothing but evolve since it first started. It's always the Wild West.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm getting here is when it comes to AI, some people are just they're putting their foot down, digging their heels in, going, I'm not doing anything that supports AI in any way. And you're just, for lack of a better term, shooting yourself in the foot because you
Th-
digging your heels
those
in isn't going to make it stop.
it is my firm belief that if you do that, you will not have a blog in 5 years.
Yeah.
I've been very
Yeah.
clear about that. It's just like I am 100% against Raptive's huge, huge desire to have every one of their clients block all
Right.
AI bots.
Yeah.
I can tell you from experience that my clients who haven't blocked AI are killing it. From Leeds Culinaria to Sugar Spun Run to literally everyone in between, they are not blocking AI. There is a whole list of the largest sites in the world. They are not blocking AI, whether it's Pinch of Yum, whether it's Sugar Spun Run, whether it's Mama Knows Best, whether it's David Lebowitz. There's a long list of people who have chosen specifically not to block AI because the visibility of not doing so outweighs the perceived negatives
Right.
or the whoa boogeyman that's happening by being pushed by these ad companies. And you're going to find, and my prediction is in 2026, that is going to accelerate. There will be
Yeah.
a collapse of a wall because we know recently Google just actually was quoted as saying in a recent event, they are not going to be licensing publishers. They are going to be supporting publishers as they've done forever with links
Mm-hmm.
and traffic.
Mm-hmm.
They will not be negotiating any individual license deals with publishers. They literally just said that. That was on stage. So, and please understand as well, and I've had this discussion with the ad companies as well, or with many other people. Let's say that there was some way that there was a licensing deal. Do you really think that the Becky Loves Sourdough is going to get that traffic over a Amy Bakes Bread?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Or a small dessert site's going to get that over, you know, Sally's Baking Addiction?
Right.
No, because that traffic is always going to gravitate to the larger, well-managed sites. Those are going to be the sites that recipes are going to get pulled in because of their reach. So if you're signing up for Raptive now, if you're a blogger on Mediavine and you're doing 50 to 100,000, you're doing more than that, and you're thinking of making the switch to Raptive, the worst thing you can do is block AI because you've immediately done two things. You've provided a competitive advantage to everyone who's not blocking AI, and you've removed yourself from the visibility layer of LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot surface you, they cannot understand you, and they certainly can't cite you as a high quality result
Mm-hmm.
now and in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And they are already sending traffic. Like
Yeah.
I get traffic from not a ton. Like it certainly hasn't replaced Google,
No,
but
no, no, and it won't. I mean, the average site without doing any sort of optimization, and there can be optimization done, it's just not,
right.
bullshit AIO or AEO stuff. You can go from 1.5% all the way up to 5 to
Right.
7%. I shout out to David Leety of Leeds Culinaria. He has done a fantastic job. He's getting a very good percentage of traffic from LLMs because he was very quick to lean into it. He provides custom LLM buttons in his recipe post. This is also something that I think I might have mentioned in the resources I gave you, ladies, is that Google provides a trusted source button now. Well, it's not even really a button, but it's a link. You can actually add a link to your site to be known as a trusted source for Google. And when someone clicks on that, you can save them in your Discover settings.
Yeah.
So if you're like thinking, well, Casey, what can I do to increase my discoverability in possibly Google Discover and maybe get me some other, Google related visibility? Put in the recommended trusted me buttons. Those are great. It's you click on them and it basically pops up and you can save your site in your list of preferred reading materials. And then you're going to find as you pull out your phone going forward, you're going to see more of those sites in your personalized feed.
Right. So if you
That's a
know you
win-win.
trust, yeah, if you trust a site for one recipe, you're most
Yeah,
likely going to trust it for
absolutely.
everything else.
Right.
That is incredibly
Yeah.
true. So yeah, you can see, and you'll see those. I think I gave you guys some
Yeah.
examples
Yeah.
of recipes to do that. For those of you on the call, you can go to a site called livingchirpy.com. They're a recent audit client. Just look at the top of their recipes. You can look at sites like the cooking chicks. You might have to search for that in Google so that you don't misspell it incorrectly. You can look for the Healthful Blonde. You could look for Leeds Culinary. You can look for Casina by Alana. There's a long list. You can look at all these sites that have optimized correctly with these very visible buttons, and the biggest complaint on these buttons is like, well, aren't you taking people away from your site? you would be taking people away from your site in no more percentages than if you included links to TikTok or YouTube or
Right.
Facebook.
Yep.
These are just utility buttons. That's it.
Yep.
The people
Yep.
who are going to use those buttons are already going to be using them regardless of whether you have them or not.
Right.
Yep.
So I always kind of laugh. It's just it's a very funneled viewpoint.
Yeah.
And trust me, I get a lot of hate mail. I get a lot of hate mail. A lot of people probably send me sacks of crap on Halloween. Totally okay. Okay, you're doing something right when you are getting negative feedback.
Right.
If it was all, hey, get along to get along, go along to get along, it wouldn't be as hard hitting.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. I think that the buttons are going to be very impactful. I think that the sites that are using them now are clearly showing results. I mean, we're tracking it. And I think that your goal, you need to make your site as easy to be cited as possible by both users and LLMs, and that's what the buttons do.
Yeah. I mean, our industry just goes in such cycles of change.
Yeah,
And I think right now we're just in one of those super fast cycles where things are
do you,
just,
yeah, and let's look back on it too. Do you remember when jump to recipe buttons were introduced?
yes.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that I was one of the biggest components of jump to recipe
Yep.
buttons? I said this is absolutely a user first way to go.
Yep.
You should use them. Do you remember how vocal the ad companies
Yeah.
were
I was
against me?
just going to say that.
They literally came out and said, this Casey Markee guy, do not listen to him. This is going to destroy your ad income. And then within 3 years, of course, they were all part of every blogger in the world. And the ad companies had to admit that they could find no research that was showing drops off in RPMs. As a matter of fact, the opposite was happening. Bloggers were having increased RPMs because they were jumping down, looking at the recipe, and then backing up and going back and forth.
Right.
Well, there was another instance after that, table of contents. Table of contents have been very popular for the last 4 years. And the reason table of contents were popular and still are is because they have multiple advantages. Let's not even worry about the advantages they have for LLMs. We're going to get into that in a minute. But when table of contents were first launched, they were there because Google was picking up the individual jump links and making them extra headings in the search result.
Yeah.
So imagine you're on page 1 or page 2 and you go and you see, well, look at that. They've got their regular link, but also here's a link to ingredients, and here's a link to tips, and here's a link to step-by-steps. Anytime we can increase your rich snippet visibility, you're going to increase conversions. Well, now fast forward now, and over the last year and a half, we've seen that LLMs love the crap out of table of contents because it allows them to understand semantically and topically the different sections of the post that much easier.
Right.
So again, it makes no sense not to include a TOC with most posts. Now, you have to determine what the appearance should be. So I personally believe that we would never want to have a fully open table of contents because it's too big, but we also would never collapse it because then no one's going to see it.
Right.
So, something that's half open, Cultivate does a good job with that. I know that there are plugins now that allow you to do that. And of course, Feast, they were one of the big purveyors of this. They pushed out a table of content they call an advanced jump links that actually are scrollable.
Yeah.
So you can adjust the size of the container and then you can scroll up and down to make it easier for the user to find what they're looking for, but also not take up a lot of real estate on the front end of the site. So yeah, those things now we move to the age of LLMs, and there's a clear benefit to having those on the page, at least that I have been able to see. So those are the kind of things that we just have to continue to push back, because I always get audits from people who've had an audit with someone else, or they've had 2 audits with other people, and they come to me, I'm like, Casey, we've literally had to unwind half of everything that this other person did. I'm like, yes, and I'm sorry, you wasted your money, because that's the kind of outdated information that we're dealing with. Anyone who tells you shouldn't have breadcrumbs, or you shouldn't have a TOC, or having this element on a page is causing you to lose traffic, ask them to show you the numbers, because I have the numbers. That's why my audits are so successful, is I literally am using usertesting.com every day to prove these points. And I can't find any of the other people out there publishing this work to show what they're doing is working.
Right.
And that's why the search engine land articles are so important. If you go to any search engine land article, what do you see at the top of the page now?
Yeah.
Table of contents.
Table of contents.
You see
Yeah.
that right there? Do you also see the save as a trusted source button?
Mm-hmm.
So if sites like Search Engine Land are doing all of those things, don't you think that the average publisher probably should as well
Right.
Especially when it's in their name.
when it's in their name?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Anyway.
Casey, I'm going to take us on a tangent for a little bit because
Mhm.
I'm just curious. Talk about keyword research. I know you talked about it some in some of the sources you gave us. It's a little bit different. That's why I'd like you to dive into that a little bit.
The keyword research is really interesting because Google doesn't really rank on keywords as much as they used to. As a matter of fact, it's probably been years. It's more about entities. It's more about how they disambiguate those entities. And when I say disambiguation, I mean how easy it is for Google or an LLM to come to your site and understand the entities on the page so they can understand the main gist of that page.
Mhm.
Now, what you're trying to do with keyword research is, the usual things. Maybe I have a keyword in my title, maybe I have a keyword in my meta description, maybe I have a keywords a couple times on the page. But your goal is really to provide a complete topical review of everything that's around that. So for keyword research, you should be literally looking at things like stemmed keywords. What's related to my main focus keyword? And making sure that's on the page, or what other entities are related to this. So if I'm doing a post on, banana cream pie, I'd want to look and see what are the other related things around banana cream pie that would make sense in my post. And a lot of bloggers struggle with that. They just keep hitting their main head keyword, banana cream pie, 15, 20 times in the post, and they wonder why that's not enough anymore.
What
And
kind
it's
of
an
tool are you using to determine that? Like what entities are associated with, say, banana cream pie?
Well, if you go to any of these, whether it's Ahrefs or SEMrush or any of those suites, they have semantic review tools in there.
Okay.
So those all help. You can also use something like inlinks.net, which is very popular. Inlinks.net. And Inlinks has the ability for you to review entities at scale. You can go in and sign up for a tool there that checks the main entities and applies them to an outside resource. The way I like to explain to bloggers during my audit is why entities are so important. Think of your site as a maze.
Hmm.
Google is a rat. The entities are the little pieces of cheese that we use to lead the rat that is Google through the maze that is our site. So how do we mark up those entities? Well, we can mark up those entities with schema. Sometimes we can use web page schema. There's other options as well. Same as schema, which is covered in the Yoast plugin, other options out there. But what we want to do is we just want to make it easier as possible for Google, and in return for these AI systems to understand what our content is about. But the days of you just going to like a keywords everywhere, or going to a key search and finding a keyword and then trying to optimize the page around that keyword, honestly, that's the very least you can do. You're
Okay.
going to be more successful looking at what the overall look of the page is to a third party. Does the page read well? Is it clear that if I'm reading a page on Abraham Lincoln, did I cover all the related entities to Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, his wife, Mary Todd, his son, the Civil War? There are various entities that someone is going to expect to see when they read a post, and it's the same in a recipe. And you can see those entities if you go into Google and do a simple keyword search. Look at the bottom of the people also ask. Look at the questions that are being returned in the people also ask were the related queries at the bottom, or the people also search, I believe, or also asked searches at the bottom.
Right.
We'd
Mm-hmm.
want to look at all of those to determine if I'm writing a complete recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just little things that we can do to stand out.
So using your banana cream pie example, um, if we were to use the related entities for that, we would talk about maybe the different types of crust you can use with the banana cream pie, or how to make the banana cream filling, or how to make the whipped cream on top. I'm just kind of
No,
picking at
exactly.
random thing. Like you're just kind of showing,
Would you use a store-bought crust? Would you use a
right.
homemade graham cracker crust? Would you make the whipped cream yourself? Would you just want to say, hey,
Hmm.
I don't have the time to make a homemade whipped cream, but I'm gonna use this store-bought whipped cream instead because of this, this, and this. Maybe you've
Hmm.
decided that expediency is the better part of valor in
Hmm.
that part. But there are ways for you to do that. Now you can go and look at what Google is returning, especially in those top 3 or 4 results. But remember that if we're replicating that, that actually hurts you because that's not unique.
Right.
So our goal is to try to be unique. A lot of bloggers still fall into this trap where they think, well, okay, I'm looking at the top 3 here, and I'm going to do everything that they're going to do. That is the surest way to ensure you will not rank.
Hmm.
Because what is our theme been today? Differentiation.
Right.
So what is it that we can do to set our banana cream pie apart from these other three, or even from the other ones in the bottom of the page? Now we know that there's a domain bias. That's regardless of what people say, there's absolutely a big domain bias.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes even if you have the best banana cream recipe in the world, the odds of you outranking in all recipes or a Sally's Bacon Addiction or a Spend with Pennies is probably pretty low.
Right.
So maybe we optimize for a long tail keyword, which isn't nearly as competitive and doesn't necessarily have or is dominated by these large brands. And that's where the keyword research can really come into
Mm-hmm.
play.
And because in all honesty, our users are still searching the internet the way they've always searched the internet, right? Like it's not like their habits have changed because of AI and because of Google's changes. The end user is still pretty much using the internet the way they've always used it.
As a matter of fact, that's true. I would say that the only change there is longer queries. They're doing
Right,
longer, more informative queries now. It's
right.
not just banana cream pie. It's I need a banana cream pie for my party, or
Yeah,
I need a banana cream pie. I only have 3 hours.
right.
So the more conversational the queries are, the better. And you can understand if you start to do those searches and replicate those searches at your end and also with LLMs, you can start looking and seeing patterns. But here is one of the biggest issues. Search is 100% personalized. That's
Hmm.
why, you can't really rely on ranks or rank checking tools these days because they're always tied to a specific city at a specific point in time so that the results are going to stay basically the same. But that means that you're always looking at results from a particular city in a
Hmm.
particular point in time. So you're never going to have a full view of how you're doing visibly.
Hmm.
And that is unfortunately an issue that we're just always going to have. That's why rankings, honestly, is not something I tend to recommend. I instead recommend on just aggregate visibility. If I know that I started with this number of rankings and next month I now know I have this number of rankings, then I know that things are moving in the right direction. But I also want to be able to check, okay, how many of those rankings are possibly in the top 3, the top 10, the top 20?
Hmm.
Because visibility is basically the goal of the day, so to
Right.
speak, not
Right.
necessarily any specific individual rankings.
Hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So we still work on it, but don't necessarily put all your eggs in that basket. And
Right, right.
yeah.
And the bloggers who are going to be the most successful in 2026 are the ones that embrace AI. I've said this repeatedly. The ones that
Hmm.
have found ways to return time that they have lost in the black hole that has been their blog for the last several years. Maybe they are able to automate something that previously took them an entire afternoon. The biggest complaint, not complaint, but the biggest feedback, the biggest, I guess, compliment I have ever received from a blogger was that you gave me more time with my family.
Hmm.
And that is the goal with every audit that I do. This is the holiday season. Our goal should be able to you should be able to honestly just focus on updating content. That's really the best use of your time these days anyway.
Right.
Especially if you were impacted by a recent core update, the best use of your time would be to look at your top 25 drop posts, ask those questions that I stated at the beginning of this call, read the quality rater guidelines, read the page of information from Google, and look at those recipes with fresh eyes.
Hmm.
What can we do to make these more useful? Did I make everything as clear as they can be? Can I send some links into this post to get them moving? Your time is always spent improving your existing content over adding new content. That has always been my belief. That is
Yeah,
the
Yes.
you've been
best use
saying
of your
that for a
time.
very long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the one big take with my first audit with you. It was like, I think you gave me like a 1-to-4 ratio, like for
Yeah.
every new post, update 4. And I've kind of always kept that in the back of my mind.
Right. And now I'll be honest with you, it's 8 or 9.
Yeah.
For every 8 or 9 posts you update, you might want to publish 1 or 2 new posts,
Yeah.
and you should be looking seasonally for that. If
Hmm.
you're starting in January, if, I want to see you do a 90-day review year over year. What is the content that did well in the last 90 days?
Yeah.
And how is that content doing now? And then, of course, make sure that you spot check those. Did they drop because of the presence of an AI overview?
Hmm.
If they drop from a presence of an AI overview, then maybe what we should be looking at doing is expanding the keywords that post is ranking for so that we could recover some maybe third party traffic because we
Right.
know that the main target keywords are probably going to stay as they are because of the
Hmm.
AI overview. But if you find that, oh my gosh, I dropped from 3 to 7, that's a target that I need to update immediately because that's Google telling you there is an intent match, but these other 4 sites are doing things you're not. These other
Mm-hmm.
4 sites are hitting the intent better than you, or these other 4 sites have on-page metrics, or maybe they have some backlinks, or maybe you failed to fill out all of your schema.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're running less ads than you. I cannot stress that enough. Ads are one of the I want bloggers to make money. And I am proud to say that the average client that I do, they always have higher RPMs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also hilarious because the RPM advice I give them is always contrary to their ad companies. I tell move the ads down the page, never run pop-ups, make sure that you're not running Google vignette ads, which cover the entire page.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you go in if your journey and turn off these crazy interstitial ads that they opted you into without anyone telling you. Those are the little things that we need to do to ensure that you have the best UX possible,
Mm-hmm.
because we know per Google that UX is a ranking factor.
Yeah.
It's the top
Yeah.
ranking factor. How do users interact with your content?
So
And
how
that's what we want to
important is
do.
EEAT now?
Well, EAT has always been an external factor. Okay, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to add this to my page and I'm going to increase my EAT. Google has been very clear about that. That's not something that you could, quote, optimize for at the page level.
Right.
I am not a food blogging SEO expert because of anything I possibly could say. I am considered an expert because of the thousands of web mentions out there that point back to me and my site. If
Right.
you type in food blogging SEO expert, Google says Casey Markee is the number one known for this, and he gives you my credentials. And there's even I now have a little, I didn't for a while, but now I have one of those little knowledge panels, which
Mm.
has my
Nice.
very outdated photos and links to old YouTube videos. That's our goal, is to be considered an authority. And you are not an authority by anything you say. You are an authority by what others say about you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So how do you build that? Well, you sit on podcasts like this one. You contribute articles to third-party sites like Search Engine Land. You attend conferences. You sponsor events. You get users to be your cheerleaders. I want someone to say, I had the best experience of my life with Casey. And then they go in on a forum and tell someone else. And maybe that person tells 4 or 5 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you generate these web mentions. And guess what those web mentions now become? Training data for LLMs, citations. And that's what we always want to do. So whenever I have an audit these days specifically, I send them a long list. You ladies remember, you have a long list of link building resources.
Mm-hmm.
But our focus is really on user improvement. How can we get you to improve your expertise,
Right.
your profile online? There are only so many things we can do on the site. Like, okay, you've put about me schema on your about me page. We've linked your recipe cards and your recipe posts to your about me page. We've filled in all of your schema. We've gone in maybe into your user account and put in some advanced schema enhancement that are available in Yoast. That's great. Now we have to look externally. Do you have profiles elsewhere that are being connected to your site in a correct way? Because we know, and there's even an article on it in SEO Roundtable today, about how more and more social signals are being used to determine the validity of creators.
Mm-hmm.
How strong are our external social profiles? Can I, if I have something that's big that's happening with my blog, maybe I should look at submitting a press release. A press release, I can't believe it. What's old is new again. You can submit a
Yeah.
press release. Those will get picked up. Those will get ingested and indexed by LLMs immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And those are ways for you to push mentions of you, especially for novelty events, things that have value,
Yeah.
any life events. But anything we can do externally. I try to tell bloggers, ChatGPT is your friend. Go into ChatGPT and say, my name is Christina Hitchcock, and I'm located here, and I would like you to help me draft a distribution list to every print, TV, radio station in my area who might be looking for free recipe and lifestyle content.
In fact, I
And
just did that and it was amazing what it gave back to me.
yeah,
And
and then it'll
I've
even
done
tell you
PR.
it'll even tell you who the
Yeah.
contact person is, and then you can
Yep.
use it to draft your contact letter.
Yep. And I've done
Uh,
PR in the past, so I kind of knew what my media list was like what it should be.
right.
And I was surprised at how accurate it actually was, the results that ChatGPT gave me when I did that. So it's bona
Yeah,
fide.
and that's where that also brings you to a mindset shift for a lot of bloggers. There are bloggers out there who want to take their blog from a hobby to a business.
Mm-hmm.
but they'll come and have an audit with me and I'll say, okay, how comfortable are you speaking in front of people? How comfortable are you going to your local farmers market and advertising your recipes? How comfortable are you doing these things so that we can build you up as an authority so that you can be, again, the number one, you know, Emily, Jane, whatever in the entire world. What are you comfortable doing that? And they're like, no. And I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And I
It's
just tell them,
scary.
like, look, I get it. It's scary. But if your goal is to make this from a hobby to a business, you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You
Mhm.
have to, you no longer, and it is my fervent belief about this, no longer can you just sit in an office in your house publishing recipes and responding on social media and make this take this hobby to a business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just too competitive. You can't do that. So you've got to get out there, network at a conference. You got to get out there, maybe contribute content to other bigger bloggers
Mhm.
so that you can increase your own EAT, your expertise, all of that. Anything that you can do, as I tell the blogger, anything you can do, be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do.
And it is scary getting out there in front of people.
Very,
I remember the first
very.
time I did it, I was scared to death. I was scared.
Mhm.
And the more you do it, like everything else, it's second nature now. So when the TV
Yeah,
station calls me, I'm like, yeah, come on over. Like, okay, I got to quick clean my house, but come on over. We'll
that's
do a
right.
segment. Yeah.
Just like me with vegetables. Hate vegetables. Okay, really terrible. But I know I have to have some vegetables occasionally. So
Yeah.
again, that's how it is with PR.
Yep. It's true. It's true. Yeah, use that for all it's worth. So any final notes on, what you see happening in the coming year, whether it's 2026 or beyond?
Well, I guess I would end with a message of hope and resilience
Mhm.
because blogging is not dead. It's not going anywhere. We're going through an evolution where we're moving from there's a big gap between the professional blog and the hobby blog.
Mhm.
And you have to determine which of those are you. Because if you're the professional blog, then you need to treat this like a business. You need to invest in yourself. You need to invest in expert third parties to help you get to the
Mhm.
next level. You need to get out there and be the squeaky wheel. You need to really be comfortable in your own skin and be a selfless cheerleader wherever you
Mhm.
can be to raise your profile and of course in turn generate brand and um, brand and media mentions, which will generate citations, which is basically going to be the new link. Anything you can do there, you should do. And I think that you're going to see a lot of contraction in 2026. And by contraction, I mean there will be less bloggers. Some bloggers are going to give up. I hope no one hearing this does, but some bloggers just are not built
Mhm.
for what we're going to see in 2026. We're going to have a lot of contraction with regards to traffic as there's going to be less traffic in Google. There's going to be an increase in traffic from LLMs, but it's not going to be huge. I mean, going from 1.5 to 3% may seem like a lot, but it's not.
Right.
Right.
But what you are going to see is the bloggers who are doing everything that we discussed today,
Mhm.
who are leaning into LLMs, who are leaning into being their own cheerleaders, who are focusing on making the best possible recipes they can be, and of course they're pushing those recipes in every avenue that they can. It's not just Google now; it's creating your own walled garden. What can I
Right.
do? Ask yourself, what would you do if Google didn't exist tomorrow? Do you have a community that you can start? Have you started an external email on Substack? Have you maybe now's the time to start with those ebooks? Maybe you have your own line of products you can sell. Those are things that you 100% control that Google can't necessarily take away from you.
Mhm.
But the bloggers who do all of that are going to have very successful 2026s.
Right. And I think it comes down to mindset too. Like we are entrepreneurs. This is a business, and every other industry goes through these same cycles with,
Absolutely.
they have
Absolutely.
the big booms of income and such, and then something changes and you're back down to the bottom and you got to like ride that wave, make hay when the sun's shining, to use all the metaphors that are out there.
Absolutely. All the metaphors. Are you ladies going to be attending Tastemaker next month?
Yes, I will be there.
Christina
Yep.
will be
Okay.
there.
All
Yep.
right.
Can't
You
wait.
will you will find me at the bar. So just find me at the bar. Anyone who finds if you're listening to this call and you're going to Tastemaker, find me at the bar. Your drinks are on me. It's the
Okay.
least I could do.
Fantastic.
Good to know.
It's the
Good
This
to
was
least
a
I
know.
could do.
great conversation, Casey. I can't
Good.
believe an hour flew by
I
already.
know. I know. You
Thank you
answered
so
all the
much.
questions I had and some I didn't even have. I have
I
three
know. I
pages of
know.
notes here.
Lots of notes again, as usual. Thank you so much for joining us today, Casey.
The pleasure is
Listeners,
entirely mine. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
listeners, if you want to take action on what we talked about today, you can head over to MediaWise. It's mediawyse.com, and you can book an audit with Casey and get more in-depth help on everything that we talked about today. He's clearly an expert and is
Mhm.
dedicated to helping anyone that's willing to take his help succeed in this industry.
Yeah. And we'd love to hear from you. So make sure you tag us on Instagram at the Smart Influencer with your biggest takeaway. Send us an email, whatever. Or, just tell us how you're applying what you've learned today, or maybe some changes that you're going to be making on your site.
Thank you for spending time with us today. We will be back next week with another episode to help you grow smarter, work less, and earn more. See you then.
Bye.